Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Laura Jones, Executive Vice President of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Laura, you guys are launching your Red Tape Awareness Week next week, February 22nd to 25th. Tell me a little bit about the importance and why you, as an organization, feel it's important to do this week.
Well, that's right. It's lucky 13 years we've been doing our Red Tape Awareness Week. And essentially, the week is dedicated to putting red tape in the spotlight. And why do we want to put red tape in the spotlight? To fix it. And who wins when we get rid of red tape? Really, everybody wins, because I think it's one of those things that I miss that long, confusing, complicated, unnecessary form, said no one ever, right? So it's really about making the world a little bit easier for everyone by reducing complicated rules and things that just don't make sense. Now, I want to make a really important distinction here, because there's lots of regulation that is necessary to protect human health, safety, the environment. In fact, small businesses would say about 70% of the rules are needed for this, and so we don't have any quibble with those. It's the red tape that we're putting in the spotlight and saying this is what we need to fix.
Tell me, first of all, before we talk a little bit more about red tape in general, what kind of things are happening during the week?
So we've got three big things happening this year. One, we've got a report that compares Canada's regulatory costs to those in the US. So we worked with a great organization down in the US to do the comparison. So that should be really interesting. We always like to compare ourselves to our neighbors to the south. The second thing we're doing that always gets a lot of attention, we've been doing this for 12 years, is grading governments on how well they are doing. And when we look at grading governments on red tape, we look at two things. First of all, are they being accountable? So are they measuring and reporting and doing all the great things that we like to see when it comes to fiscal budgets? And second, we're getting a handle on burden too and looking at that. So the second thing is the government report card. And finally, a little feel good, we've got a Golden Scissors Award, and we've got two provinces this year that we're awarding for some specific regulatory innovation initiatives they've taken. And that's pretty cool. So we'll stay tuned for that.
I will, and I'll look forward to seeing those news releases on those. Now, let's talk in general about red tape. Why is it important that this stuff, besides the, I guess the frustration and having to deal with more paperwork and all that stuff, what are the economic consequences of having too much red tape?
Well, of course, I mean, it costs our economy billions of dollars. Our latest, our estimate that we're updating next week was, the last estimate was $37 billion a year. But that doesn't mean much to people in terms of, the dollars. Of course, that's important. It's a drag on the economy. We can talk about all of those things. But let's bring it down to a different level. It wastes time. And how valuable is your time?
True.
And so when you waste time, you're taking it away from other things you could be doing. And for business owners, that could be training staff, serving customers, working on a business plan, all kinds of higher priority, maybe spending a little more time with friends and family. And for individuals, it's the same thing. When you're trying to understand a confusing rule or fill out a form that's longer than it needs to be, that eats into your time and the time that you have, whether it's to have a quiet cup of coffee with yourself or spend with a friend or get home a little earlier for dinner. And time is really valuable. It's really important.
So when you look, obviously red tape can involve a lot of things, a lot of levels of government, both federally, provincial, and municipally. Is there one of those governments that particularly affects small business more than any others when it comes to red tape?
That's a great question, and I think it depends on They all affect businesses in different ways, and it depends a little bit on your business. And particularly if you have a specific frustration with a level of government, then that specific frustration is going to dominate everything. I'm thinking about the case we had in a small BC municipality where they were requiring the business literally to build a sidewalk to nowhere, like a sidewalk in front of their business, in order to get a permit to to expand the business a little bit, but there were no sidewalks to connect to. So it was just a ridiculous, expensive rule that made no sense. So for that business owner, the municipal level of government is going to be front and center for them.
Yeah.
For others, it can be, confusing tax bulletins, and then that could be the federal or provincial level of government. So it very much depends. They're all three of them have work to do in terms of improving the burden.
Okay, and the last question I had for you is just the importance of the reduction of red tape, particularly this period of time. Obviously, we've gone through one heck of a 2-year cycle with the pandemic. A lot of businesses impacted, still a low number of businesses back to normal sales. The last thing I think they need right now is more red tape, don't they?
Oh, you are so right about that. I mean, we all know small businesses have been just hammered through the pandemic. Many of them are now carrying big debts in order that they took on in order to get their business through this period. And what we know is that for small businesses, they typically have two big priorities. One of them is keep taxes reasonable. The other one is keep regulations reasonable. And so this is always important, but I would say that it's taken on an extra level of importance right now. Yeah. And particularly businesses have had to navigate some restrictions that have been really important to protect health and safety, but all of those have added additional costs as well. So as we emerge from this pandemic, I think we really need to get serious about reducing red tape. And governments have done some of that work. Think about the patio approvals that were approved in 24 or 48 hours instead of weeks or months or years, which would have typically been the case. Vaccine approvals, another good example, allowing doctors to serve customers virtually. So there's all electronic signatures. Governments have become more nimble, and we need to hold on to that nimbleness and build on that as we go forward. And we have a real opportunity to modernize our thinking around regulation for the good of all Canadians.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks very much, Laura, for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, that was Laura Jones, Executive Vice President, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. This has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.